أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام عليك يا رسول الله. This is a podcast of the Deen of an Old Woman. I like to simplify things in life because it obviously makes it much easier. Life is complicated as it is, so the best thing to do is to simplify our reality of life. So this simplification also encompasses my explaining various Islamic terms to myself and to you. So today I thought I'd just look at the word surrender. One little word, surrender, loaded with power, meaning, direction, our peace and tranquility. Everything is embedded in surrender. So inshallah, hopefully, we'll try to unpack that word and try to understand how we can achieve this state of surrender. And as you know, when we translate Islam in a simplified way, we say it's surrender, surrendering our will to Allah. Basically meaning that whatever Allah commandment and Allah has given us, we are happy to carry them out. We have full tawakkul in Allah, meaning our reliance on Allah. We literally place ourselves within the two hands of Allah, where there's safety and security, and we know that Allah will direct all our affairs in the best of manner. As I've said many times, the foundation for our belief is that Allah is the loving, merciful God, and He always wants good for you and I. He never wants anything bad for us. So whatever happens to us is either because with our free choice we chose to do that, or if it happens, which is out of our control, is for a particular reason. So let's go back to the word surrender. Surrendering to Allah means submitting your will to Him. This means that everything we're doing in life, it has to be with the pleasure of Allah. So basically, this is the do's and the don'ts that we have to follow the Quran. We should not follow our desire, our whims. We should have a clear vision that the principle, the Sharia law, the boundaries that Allah has given us, to remain with them. Always remember, when our desire is opposite the command of Allah, and we do that thing, it will destroy us in the long run. This is really important to understand. So if I want something, say, God forbid, if I want to take cocaine or something like that, and it's forbidden, so what is going to happen? The result is clear. Bit by bit by bit by bit, we will destroy ourselves because we're doing something that is forbidden, or that is the opposite to what Allah has said to us. So we really have to be careful how much of the desires are involved in invoking our emotions and realizing or thinking or really acquiring what we want in life. It has to be in line with the commands of Allah. We start our story is that obviously when we are born, we all have this seed of faith in us that comprises our inner deeper dimension. It's much more deeper than our thinking. And that seed was put in there before we were born, when Allah created all our soul, and He asked us, am I not your Lord? And we said, yes, Allah, you are the one the only one worthy of worship. You are our Lord. And so we came in this world with this understanding, with this actualizing what we've said, it is in a form of a little seed of fitra within us. When we are not true to nurturing, taking care of this seed by watering with conscious prayer and cultivating the soil with character or good personality, the seed will not spring forth. It will not blossom. It will not grow. The seed lays dormant within us, and the thorns and the bushes are created, which are the form of our ego, that constantly churning of the mind, taking hold of us, so much so that we come to identify ourselves with ego, which is not really our true self. So when we don't nurture that seed, thorns grow, and as a result, this lays the foundation of our ego. And our ego is only concerned about me, this selfishness, being short-sighted, not caring for others, and in the long run, we will eventually destroy ourselves. This ego is fully developed by the time we reach puberty, and it keeps us occupied by making demands on us for wanting pleasure all the time. It's a instant gratification. So you can see that when children hit their puberty, they start developing this likeness, or they become very much attached to something, whether it's video games or social media or shopping or socializing or drinking. They become attached to that, and this is the development of the ego within us. So the ego wants pleasure all the time, and when things go wrong, especially in relationship, it traps us in constant stream of thought, whereby we're always thinking about the past or regretting the past, and worried about, continuously frightening and anxious and uncertain about the future. So we're stressed and anxious. And we can relate to that how the mind constantly churn thinking, and this is generated by the ego. So the more reliance we are on our pleasure-driven character, the more ego will keep us preoccupied and not allow us to have this internal peace. So in order to trap us, this ego, it constantly creates an illusion. So we become deluded from the true essence of life. We move from one disaster relation to the next, completely at the mercy of the ego. The deeper the seed is buried within you, which is the knowledge of Allah, the divine knowledge, the more inactive, or the more we leave it deep inside us, we become disconnected to our true source of happiness, which is Allah. So we live this sort of fragmented life, a sort of brokenness, sort of emptiness, sort of darkness, sort of state of agitation, and state of where we get bored, where we try this and we try that and we try this, and it might give us a temporary little distraction, but then after a little while we become bored with it. And that's because we do not cultivate that deep seed of faith that Allah has buried within all of us, this natural fitra, which is in you and I. The mind is a wonderful instrument when used properly for assessing and analyzing the data. But when we don't surrender to Allah, the mind creates an image and starts to identify with it. Let me explain that a little bit more. So when when we do not surrender our will to Allah, what happens is that we start creating our own entities or our own objects that we want to be attached to, or we look up to, or we admire, or want to follow. And they will never lead us to peace. Because it's only when we follow the commands of Allah, that's when we have peace. So we started identifying ourselves with, I don't know, a football team or anything, any event that happened in our life. But that's not really truly us. The more we are dependent on the stream of thoughts, the more we become to identify with them. The ego will never allow you to experience inner peace, which is beyond space and time, which comes from submitting our will to Allah and not thinking of ourselves as independent entity. A disconnected person being is the mercy of ego. And this, when we become entrenched in ego, so we, as a teenager, we do not submit our will to Allah, we don't follow the true path, we don't follow the straight path, we don't follow Islam, we don't worship, we don't use our time in service of humanity, we don't rely on Allah. When we all do these things, we are left at the mercy of the ego. And as we grow into adulthood, this ego nurtures three, it's like a little dragon with 3 heads inside us. And the more we are following our desires, the more this little dragon inside us with 3 heads is getting bigger and bigger. And these 3 heads can be said to be anger, greed, and lust. Often in our lives, and especially when we look at others, we see that they function or they navigate the life or they live their life or they form the relationship and the friendship because of those 3 things, either lust, anger, or greed. They're not sincere people because they are mercy of the ego and not submitted the will to Allah. So when we start act upon on that dragon that's within us and ignore the seed of faith within us, then we become dissatisfied with ourselves and we become disconnected from our true nature, which is to be the slave of Allah, to be aware, to be conscious of Allah, to see how closely we depend on Allah for every breath we take. The scientists tell us there are nearly 84 trillion cells in our body. And can you imagine? Allah is directing all those cells in order to give us good health, that everything function in order, that the taste buds on the tongue are active so that we enjoy a bit of a chocolate or whatever we like. All these cells are working in harmony with each other, directly under the commandment of Allah. And all Allah requires from us is to acknowledge that and to have gratitude. And as we know, a lot of psychological studies have shown those who have gratitude have better quality of life. So when we are unaware or when we do not follow the teaching of Islam, we are trapped in our own conceptual image that will become lost in this, and we create our own emotional and psychological journey to life. We try to go here and there, try this and that, do this and that in order to find that peace. So that we become so much confused and in disarray and astray and lose our sense of reality, that we become fossilized in that state. And if we don't wake up and realize and ask forgiveness from one true God and turn back to Him, we will remain in that fossilized mindset for the rest of our lives. And it's quite sad how in society the elder population are mostly bitter and discontented. Majority of them. Because they have fossilized their inner state. The ego always wants to be special, as it is built on illusion and inequalities. So it looks for label to feel superior. So it wants to do birthday parties and try to make herself better and give a label to, so I'm like this and I'm so and so and so and so, when inside we are empty. The media industry makes billions and billions of pounds to make our ego special, and we fall for it. We buy this and we buy that. They tell us if we use this particular shampoo, we will turn everybody's head and how much they will admire us. And each one of us have fallen for that. So we spend our money in order to think that we are going to be special in some way. But the treasure of the seed that lies deep within us, we are unaware of that. Furthermore, the ego always wants to be right. It will argue to achieve it, and it will go to conflict with others so it can make boundaries between it and other to feel special. So the person will criticize other person or look down upon the other person in order to feel superior. Eckhart, the person who writes on the ego intensively, he says that the ego needs enemy so it can define itself. It often identifies itself as a physical form, like a house or a car, or things like that. And when that goes, then what happens? The person becomes utterly in shock, and they have no grounding, they have no anchor. Just a few days ago, it was very stormy and windy, and the people opposite to where I live had part of the roof blown over, and they became devastated. They're suffering so much psychological pain, because when the ego identifies itself for all these things, it affects us. But if we submit our will to Allah, we say that this gush of the wind that removed part of the roof, there's a wisdom behind it, and we won't break down. We won't have a psychological trauma. We will take it within our stride. Look at the beauty of faith, beauty of Islam, beauty of submission, beauty of reliance, how much it gives us comfort in this life and life after death as well. When we have surrendered our will to Allah and become true Muslim, we have a deeper true self, which is our connection with our Lord. The more we acknowledge and recognize, the better life becomes. Our relationship with our Lord is one of gratitude to life and everything He has given us. When we do that, we lead a balanced way of life. We don't have to go to all those expensive courses and buy books and things and try and search for balance of life. It's simple. surrender your will to Allah, Allah will teach us how to have a balanced way of life so that your inner and the outer is in harmony and in balance. And Islam is the only way of life that teaches us how to maintain those things. So when we have this holistic and a balanced way of life, we are no longer at the mercy of our ego. We learn to let go of the past, and we are not anxious about the future because we know everything is in the hand of Allah. We rely on Allah. We believe in Allah's mercy and His compassion, and how Allah will take care of us, how Allah nurtures us, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is our caretaker. So we start to begin this healthier relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we have that, the seed, it starts flourishing. It starts flourishing, and it gives us more and more understanding of who we are and what is our role in this world and what is our relationship with Allah and our relationship with His creation and our relationship with others. It'll show us how to navigate in our social life, in our social relationships. So a deeper sense of this sort of becoming alive and this feeling of inner contentment enables us to become an observer to our thoughts and watch our negative thoughts, but we do not act upon them. And gradually they'll become weaker and weaker. When we don't focus on energy or on something, we don't give it energy. And when we don't give it energy, they just disappear. So that we become at peace with ourselves and environment and all our relationship. After all, Allah created this life not for continuous suffering, but that so we enjoy ourselves and we make a beautiful and a safe place for others. Thank you.